Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out, right? And boy, is it a learning process, but it's going on, it's continuing. We just keep on running back to God no matter what, right? This week's book of the week is the Book of James Study Guide. We've been talking about James all week long. Today, we're going to be in chapter 5, but you can get this in print or on Kindle, on Amazon, on my bookstore, or you can get it from my website, Doves Fire Ministries Publications.com, as long as that one's open. I may shut that one down. I'm just thinking about stuff. Anyway, I hope you're having a good morning, and I hope that you've had a good week. We're coming into the weekend. It's going to be exciting for you, maybe, right? Anyway, so this morning we're in James chapter 5. Now, I had problems in a couple of these chapters here as we went through this week, just finding one little thing in a chapter to major on for the day, right? Chapter 5 was similar, except that I got stuck in this one verse. And you know, when I get stuck somewhere, that's where I'm going to camp out. So here's where I'm camping today. First off, around verse 7 to, I think it's 12. I don't know where my readers are. Somewhere right in the middle of this chapter here, chapter 5 of James. James begins to talk to them about suffering and being patient in suffering. Now, we all suffer in different ways. We've all got situations that are pressing in on us that we have to deal with. And the good thing is we have hard situations and good situations and easier stuff all going on at the same time, right? But we also have to remember here that James is writing to the Christians that are being persecuted, and they've been scattered throughout. He started this whole letter with the salutation of to the tribes who have been scattered, to the believers who have been scattered, right? And that was because of the persecution in that time and during that day. And so he's talking to people who are actually suffering. They're facing some big trials. Maybe they've relocated. Maybe in their location they can't worship freely. There was all kinds of things, right? They had to go kind of be mostly covert in a lot of situations just for their own safety, right? And so they were dealing with some big stuff. But you know what? The thing about big stuff, when you deal with big stuff, is all the little stuff doesn't stop because you're dealing with some big stuff. So you got maybe one big situation going on. For me, that's caregiving, taking care of Chris. I don't know what yours is, but you may have one too. Maybe it's the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, an illness, if you fill in the blank, right? But we got that big thing. But while the big thing's going on, all the little things like managing our finances and trying to work and all of that, maybe the working is your big thing, right? And so, but all the little things don't go away just because we're working on the big thing, right? Job still had to feed his family. He had to worry about that kind of stuff, even though I'm sure they took care of it. His wife probably took care of it, but he had things going on at the same time. The big things were going on. We all have these big things that come sometimes. And so James reminds them that to be patient in suffering. And basically he says, just trust God even in the suffering. He also says, don't grumble. Okay, that's the hard part. That's the hard part because we want to fuss about it a little bit sometimes, right? Sometimes it feels better to just, and it's not bad to go to counseling and get use or have a friend has a good ear and you can just, sometimes you can process it when you share the load, but it's talking about just complaining and grumbling, he says. But then he says, do you need an example of patience in suffering? That's in verse 10, I think. It may be 16, but I think it's 10. Okay, so he says, for example of patience of suffering, look at the prophets who spoke in the Old Testament, because we have all those stories. They were put in prisons. We look at Joseph even. We look at Daniel, who served his whole life as a slave. Different things like that. And we look at their suffering. But then he says also, we give great honor to those who endure under suffering. Job is an example of a man who endured patiently. And that patiently is a big, heavy duty word. We can endure, but I don't know that we do it patiently, right? I don't know that we do it nicely sometimes because it gets heavy, it gets hard, it's difficult. And so I'm like, there's this series in a period of suffering. There's a beginning, There's that middle part where we have to try to navigate through it. And then there is the end, right? And he's going, Job waited. Job endured patiently. And we talk a lot. We use the example of Job being, we talk, it's actually a cliche to say the patience of Job. Do you have the patience of Job? Because he endured patiently. He just, it just came down to he just trusted God in the middle of it, in the middle of his trial. He just kept trusting God. And you know what? That's all we got to do too. Just keep trusting God no matter what's going on, no matter what's not going on. Just keep patiently trusting God because God's going to go through it with you. He's not waiting on the other side going, I don't know if you're going to make it or not. Man, no, he's taking every step with you. He catches every tear. He hears every sigh and feels every emotion behind those sighs, even when there's no words. He's in it with you. So it says, Job endured patiently. And then he said this, we see how the Lord's plan finally ended in good. Finally, that's a big word. Finally ended in good, right? For he is full of tenderness and mercy. And so we've got the beginning of a struggle. That's where this is kind of a shock and awe place. You're kind of in shock. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how you're going to get through it. You're going to, that's where you purpose to trust God through whatever it is. That beginning when you're in that shock state of that, what is going on, and then we got the middle where we're like, I don't even know. We're just trying to make it day by day. And then we got the end where we look back and go, wow, God brought me through that. God was with me every single step of the way, right? So in the beginning, it's a shock, and the end, it's like, whew, God helped me through that. But it's the middle part that drags us down. It's the actual walking through the struggle that gets in our head, that trips us up, that makes it feel so long, right? But here's what we can hold on to today. Whether you're starting through some new struggle, you just came through a struggle, a big one, or you're in the middle of a struggle or more than one struggle, the end is always God's mercy and grace prevailed. It's always that God is there with you in it. He's there in the middle of the storm. He's there in the middle of sickness. He's there in the middle of the struggle. He's there in the middle of the lion's den. He was there in the fiery furnace. He was there in the cell with Joseph. He doesn't tap out because it got tough. And he doesn't say, well, I'll wait till it stops raining because I don't want to melt or something, right? No, he is in the middle with us. And in the end, we can look back. Take just a second and just think back about maybe one or two big things in your life that God has already come through with you. Maybe it was a sickness. Maybe it was a divorce. Maybe it was the loss of a job, or the loss of a loved one. You had to move, and it was a wrong decision, and you ended up in a miserable place for a long time. I don't know. Just think for a second about some of those. What was your biggest trial of life so far? And don't count the one you're in. Not counting the one you're in. If you're in the middle of one right now, what was your biggest thing? Think back about how God just undergirded you, and you know that it was by the grace of God that you came through. And then you use that, like David used to encourage yourself through whatever you're in today, right now. Because that same grace that brought you through that one is going to carry you through this one. That same mercy, God's mercies that brought you through that one are going to take you through this one. And for that matter, the same grace and mercy is going to take you through the next one, because this won't be the last one either. You're still breathing, right? So we can always go back to the truth that God's got us in the beginning, the middles, and the ends of our struggles in life. He's got it. And he's not letting go. He's not stopping. He doesn't tap out. He doesn't have a power down button. He doesn't take a nap. He's got you right here. And you can look back at all the things he's brought you through to encourage you to get to the end of this one, where you can look back again and go, it was mercy and grace. It was God's mercy. It was God's grace. And encourage yourself today that he's got mercy and grace for today. And that's why we can peace out. Peace out, you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you bright and early Monday morning. Have a good weekend.